Welcome to Fake Love and Flying Monkeys, the podcast where fake love is exposed. I'm Nova Gibson and I am your host. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling.com.au. This space is dedicated to helping you reclaim your worth and understand the impact of toxic relationships with suspected narcissists. You deserve clarity, healing, and freedom from the pain of fake love and flying monkeys. So please leave a review and grab a copy of my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. Let's uncover the truth and take back your power. Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys, the covert versus the overt narcissist. Here are 5 differences I think you really need to know. And why do I think it's so important to know the difference? Well, that's because most of society tends to think that narcissists are overt. In other words, they're out there, you can pick them in a crowd, you can see them coming because they look in mirrors, they're arrogant and they're loud and they brag a lot. When I've actually found from speaking to thousands of narcissistic abuse victims over the years that most of the narcissists who have abused them have been what we call covert narcissists. The covert narcissist is often quiet, insecure, and may seem even deeply sensitive. These covert narcissists can be just as dangerous, if not more so. And I do believe they are more dangerous than their overt counterparts. And I think the fact that society expects a narcissist to be someone they can pick out in a crowd is what makes the covert narcissist so much more dangerous, because they are able to sneak into your life under the radar, appearing the absolute opposite of what you might expect an abuser to look like or to act like. So whether you're trying to make sense of a toxic relationship that you found yourself in, or you're trying to escape, hopefully, or you're wondering why something just didn't feel right, something felt off about someone that you originally thought was kind and humble, if not shy, I think understanding the difference between an overt and a covert narcissist is so important. So in this episode, we're going to be breaking down 5 key differences that I think will really help you. Number 1, how they get their narcissistic supply, how they seek validation, how they seek attention, admiration, which of course is their narcissistic supply. Narcissists cannot survive without that life-giving source, which is as important to them as oxygen is to you and I, narcissistic supply. So an overt narcissist openly seeks that admiration. They get off on the praise and all of that attention and being the center of the room. Hence, you can pick them out in a crowd. They'll brag about all their achievements and dominate all the conversation, and they'll steer everything back to themselves. That need for that admiration and validation is like right there in your face. Now, before I go any further, I just want to make it clear that there is no absolute definitive cut-off line here. And sometimes there'll be a little bit of overlap in that you might find the covert narcissist sometimes engaging in that behavior. But overall, that is not their modus operandi. That does not encapsulate who they are. So when it comes to seeking that attention, admiration, the covert narcissist, on the other hand, is going to be more subtle for the most part. They may fish for compliments by putting themselves down. They might say something like, I don't think I'm as good as everyone else here. I didn't do a good job. I wish I was as good as you. While secretly they're hoping that people rush to them to pat them on the back and go, oh no, we think you're wonderful. You did a great job. So these self-put downs are really manipulative in nature, but they're not as obvious as the overt narcissist. And this craving for validation runs just as deep as their overt counterparts, but it's masked behind that false humility and shyness, if you will. Number 2, how they handle criticism. Now, we all know that narcissists have a hairline trigger for criticism. It is like you're throwing a vat of acid in their face if they even perceive criticism, because that's what their whole life is spent doing, is managing that huge ego of theirs. So the overt narcissists will be more obvious about their disdain for you. They will usually lash out. They'll become angry and dismissive and overtly cruel. They'll argue and they'll gaslight, of course, and they'll make you feel like you're the problem for bringing anything up, as most narcissists do. But the anger will be out there and you will know it. Covert narcissists, however, they may be more passive aggressive in how they plan to punish you for criticizing them. They may internalize that criticism and think, yeah, you'll keep for later, or they may sulk, withdraw, engage in the silent treatment, which is torturous for the victim. They may even say something like, I guess I can't do anything right. Nothing I do pleases you, aiming at using that empathy of yours as a weapon against you. And of course, igniting those conditioned responses of shame and guilt. So these types of passive aggressive responses to criticism by the covert narcissist can be so confusing for you as the victim, and it's meant to be. You might start avoiding conflict altogether because it's just too exhausting. Every attempt to try and express your feelings results in this guilt, shame, and the withdrawal, the silent treatment from the narcissist, which is excruciating. So even though the abuse is just as destructive and cruel and unwarranted from the overt narcissist, at least you know what you're dealing with. They're out loud and proud about it, and you can judge your responses to that, which may be to run, to escape, hopefully, from their very overt and obvious actions, which are the opposite of the passive aggressive actions of the covert narcissist, which you can often misconstrue. Number 3, their relationships with others. Whereas the overt narcissist is happy to surround themselves with all their fans and their enablers and their admirers, their relationships are often very, very shallow. Well, they're always shallow because narcissists can't have a true relationship in the sense that there's love, trust, loyalty, all of those things that we associate with friendship and loving someone. They can't do that because they don't feel empathy and so many other things. They can't connect on that level with anyone. So any relationship with any narcissist is going to be very, very superficial, at least from the narcissist perspective. The people around the narcissist may think that they are in this relationship that is reciprocated because that is what the narcissist is portraying to them. And why would you not take someone at face value? So the overt narcissist is different to the covert narcissist in that the covert may have fewer of those social connections, but they still work hard to appear like there's a reason for that, in that people just misunderstand them. They're just not seeing how wonderful they are. It's always someone else's fault. And of course, they discard anyone the second they have perceived that that person has seen who they really are. In other words, they have seen the person behind the mask and they have called out the narcissist on their actions, and the narcissist, the covert, has to get rid of them, but that becomes their reason for not having all of those people around them that the overt narcissist will have. The covert narcissist is going to isolate you. They want to rely heavily on one primary source for all of their emotional needs. And it creates this dependency from you as the victim because you feel like you're the only one, or at least they make you feel that you're the only one who truly understands or cares about them. Now, that's going to be totally irrelevant when a new source comes along that they replace you with, one who is brimming with narcissistic supply because they haven't yet been abused. And the covert will use the fact that they aren't surrounded by all of these people because they discard everyone they think has criticized them in their life. They will use that as a reason or and a weapon to isolate you and to make you the only person in their life, which of course then makes you feel guilty if you have a life of your own, if you have passions of your own, because you're not devoting your attention to them. It's always going to be someone else's fault, though, whether they say they're just misunderstood or they're above those other people. Number 4, how they manipulate. Now, both the overt and covert are extremely manipulative, but their tactics can be quite different. The overt narcissist is going to be more direct. They're going to intimidate you. They're going to be in your face. They're going to be very open about blaming you and the gaslighting and even the rage to control you and anyone else. It is going to be more open and predictable, I guess, and just right in your face. The covert narcissist, on the other hand, is going to use often more subtle manipulation. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to engage in those more overt behaviors, especially when they're behind closed doors. But for the most part, they're going to engage in that very passive aggressive abuse once again. Things like playing the victim. Their huge weapon of choice is that emotional withdrawal, which is just so painful for victims. And very, very subtle shaming, or maybe they play the martyr. You would be nothing without me. Look at everything I do for you, in spite of everything that they've conditioned you to believe is wrong with you. The covert narcissist wants you to feel bad without ever raising their voice. They are the ones that are so good at getting you to engage in what we call reactive abuse, because they will keep their calm and their cool, and they'll at the same time be poking you and prodding and prodding and prodding until they finally get you to erupt, so that they can flip the script and then call you the crazy one. And it gives them a weapon to use if you ever want to confront them about their abuse. So I think the biggest difference here is that the covert manipulation is much harder to name and confront because it's not in your face. And victims often feel that something is just not right, something's off, but they just can't quite put their finger on it. And over time, this just erodes away their ability to trust themselves, and it makes it harder to leave the relationship. As I have said so many other times in previous episodes, if an abuser was abusive 100% of the time, or it was really, really obvious all the time, it would be easier to leave. And that's why people find it so difficult to leave these abusive relationships with covert narcissists, because of the trauma bond and because the abuse is harder to define. And of course, many other reasons where they're conditioned to minimize the abuse, rationalize it away, and sometimes even defend it, all so they can survive it. And number 5, how they express entitlement. Now, both the covert and the overt narcissist feel entitled to special treatment. They're better than everyone else, but they express it a little differently. So the overt narcissist is going to be more blunt about it. They're going to demand VIP service. They're just going to rock up at that restaurant and expect to be given the best table in the place, and they expect others to cater towards them. And they're going to become quite aggressive or controlling when things do not go their way. The covert narcissist, once again, is going to be more subtle and engage in the passive aggressive strategies they love to use. They believe they deserve special treatment too, don't get me wrong, but instead of demanding it, which may be embarrassing, they would rather sulk or, act wounded or hurt when they don't get it. They might say something like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm just not important enough." They want to use the guilt trip. They want others to feel guilty for not catering to their unspoken expectations. So the covert narcissist may rock up to that restaurant, and when they're obviously not going to be given the best table in the restaurant immediately without a booking, they may say something like, "Oh, okay, well, I've been so ill and I have this terminal illness, but that's okay. We'll go somewhere else. They'll just make stuff up, but they will pull at the empathy strings of the waiter, the owner, to get what they want, rather than just be loud and arrogant like the overt narcissist. Now, I know that's a pretty extreme example, or maybe not for some of you, saying to the waiter that they have a terminal illness, but this is what they do. They will use others' empathy to get what they want. The overt narcissist couldn't care less because they will just think that those people will drop everything and give them what they want immediately, whereas the covert narcissist would have a little more anxiety around that. So they would rather use the passive aggressive technique of making the other person feel like they're doing a horrible thing by not giving the covert narcissist what they want. So just to summarize now, guys, both covert narcissists and overt narcissists are equally harmful to you as the victim. But just because the covert narcissist is often quieter doesn't mean they're any less destructive. In fact, because the abuse is so subtle, it can make it more confusing and harder to recognize, therefore harder to leave that relationship. And of course, it makes it harder to get support. But once you have your light bulb moment, you know, and whether they're loud or quiet, narcissistic abuse damages you. It damages your confidence. It distorts your reality, and it can take a long time to heal from. But knowledge is your power. So the more you understand these patterns and behaviors, then the better you can protect yourself from getting into a relationship with one in the beginning, especially the covert narcissist. You can set those boundaries and start to heal. So if something doesn't feel right in a relationship, trust your instincts, trust your gut, because all narcissists rely on confusion to maintain control. And when you can call out that behavior, even if just to yourself, then that is the very first step to breaking free, or not getting in to that abusive, manipulative relationship in the first place. And that brings us to the end of another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. Hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I hope it gives you some more clarity around what to look for when you're trying to work out if someone is a narcissist or not. Now, as always, if you would like to have an individual Zoom counselling session with me, please see the website link in the description, and you'll also find a link to Apple Books, who I am now partnering with, where you can order your own copy of my best-selling book, either by Audible or paperback, Kindle, whichever you like, and you'll find that Apple link in the description as well. Now, if you would like to support the channel, guys, I would love it. The best thing you can do is to leave a rating and a review. It helps so much with the algorithm. You have no idea. And of course, if you'd like to do something else, there's a link there where you can buy me a cup of coffee. So on that note, it's bye from me for now. Until tomorrow's episode, remember, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of so much more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.